The skin is the largest organ of the human body. Although in most places on the human body it is less than 2 millimeters thick, the skin weighs about 10 pounds and has a surface area of approximately 20 square feet. The skin is just one organ of the integumentary system, which includes the skin and its accessory organs, the hair and nails. In this video, I will describe the functions of the skin and its basic structure. This is just the first in a series of videos on the integumentary system. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain the 6 major functions of the skin and describe the layers of the skin and their structures, that is, their tissue types. The integumentary system consists of 3 main parts. You have the skin, which is also sometimes called the integument. It's the largest organ in the body, and it covers all of the external surfaces. Your skin has several protective and homeostatic functions. Next, you have hairs. Hairs are protein-based filaments, and they're derived from the skin. They protect the skin against trauma, heat loss, and sun. There are also some sensory functions associated with the skin. Next, you have nails. Nails are derived from the skin also, and they're a scale or horn-like covering on the dorsal surface of your fingers and toes. They provide sensory input and enhanced gripping ability to the fingertips and the toes. In this video, we will focus on the skin, aka the integument. The skin is composed of 2 main layers, the epidermis, which consists of epithelial tissue, and the dermis, which is composed of connective tissue. These layers are supported by the hypodermis, which is a layer of adipose and vascular tissue. Although it is closely associated with the skin, the hypodermis is actually not part of the skin. The epidermis is the most superficial layer of the skin. It is composed of keratinized stratified squamous epithelial tissue. The squamous cells of the epidermis are called keratinocytes because they accumulate keratin, K-E-R-A-T-I-N, a fibrous protein that gives strength and waterproofing function as they move through their life cycle. Keratinocytes are made through mitosis occurring at the deepest layers of the skin, down here. As the keratinocytes migrate towards the more superficial layers of the skin, they accumulate keratin and eventually die. Sloughing of those superficial dead keratinocytes protects the deeper layers of the skin. You've probably seen this sloughing off when your skin gets really dry in the winter and you rub it. The keratinocytes come off in sheets or flakes. As an epithelial tissue, the epidermis is avascular and it is innervated. The dermis is deep to the epidermis. It consists of 2 layers of connective tissue. The papillary layer, which is closest to the epidermis and consists of areolar connective tissue, and the deeper dermis, which is composed of mostly dense irregular connective tissue. The dense irregular connective tissue allows the skin to be pulled in multiple directions without tearing. The dermis is highly vascular. Nutrients diffuse from the dermis, here, into the epidermis to feed the keratinocytes and other skin-related cells. Because the nutrients can only diffuse so far, the thickness of the epidermis is limited to no more than 1/10 of a millimeter. The dermis is also highly innervated. We will see a number of nerve endings here that detect changes in temperature, pressure, touch, and some will signal pain. The hypodermis is also called the superficial fascia. It is deep to the skin and composed mostly of adipose tissue, areolar connective tissue, and blood vessels. The main function of this layer is to anchor the skin to deeper structures like muscle and bone. Cellulite is a normal function of the skin. It is the name given to the dimpled skin found on the hips, thighs, and gluteal area. Cellulite is formed when collagen bands form around adipose tissue in the hypodermis. So if you look at this figure on the left, this is what the skin would normally look like. When the collagen bands tighten and begin to pucker, like here on the right, adipose tissue gets kind of caught within those bands and it causes this dimpled appearance to the skin. Whether someone develops cellulite and how much they develop is related to their genetics, their age, their gender, and the amount and distribution of adipose tissue. There are a number of products that claim to cure cellulite. At best, these products temporarily reduce the appearance. The best way to reduce the appearance of cellulite, however, is to eat a healthy diet and get regular exercise. Now that we have described the basic structure of the skin, let's look at the functions. Heads up! Very often on exams, I'll ask you to describe the 5 functions of the skin. It's not enough to list the functions. You will need to add a sentence or two to explain what you mean. You may want to make notes and practice describing the functions of the skin from memory. Before I describe the functions of the skin in detail, let me give you a brief overview, a cheat sheet if you will. There are 6 main functions of the skin. The first is protection. The skin provides a protective barrier for deeper tissues. Number 2, thermoregulation. The skin is very much involved in maintaining our body temperature at a warm 37 degrees Celsius. Number 3, cutaneous sensation. Your skin helps sense changes such as temperature changes, touch, and pressure that may be happening in the environment around you. Number 4, excretion. The body rids itself of a small amount of excess water, salts, and waste through your skin. Number 5 is metabolism. Your skin is the major producer of vitamin D for your body. And then number 6, your skin serves as a blood reservoir. About 5% of the body's blood is stored in the skin at any one time. Now let's look at the functions of the skin in more detail. We'll start with protection. There are 3 main ways that the skin protects the deeper layers of the body. You have chemical methods, physical methods, and biological methods. As far as chemical methods are concerned, the skin contains a number of glands that secrete antimicrobial substances. Your sebaceous glands, these are your oil glands, secrete the acid mantle and defensins that slow bacterial activity on the skin. They also secrete sebum, a hydrophobic lipid-based chemical that repels water and salt and helps to maintain your water and electrolyte balance. Physically, the layers of keratinized epithelial cells make a barrier that protects the inside of the body from its external environment. The keratinized layers provide a durable but flexible surface to protect against mechanical trauma like stretching or pressure or scratching, that is, abrasions. Your keratinized layers also block invasions of your deeper tissues by microorganisms and pathogens. They provide a barrier to those organisms. The keratin in the keratinocyte cells block water and water-soluble substances from penetrating the skin and diluting the fluids inside the body. Your keratinized layers also reduce the penetration of the body by lipid-soluble substances like plant oleoresins, like the material in poison ivy that causes rashes. It also helps reduce penetration by organic solvents, salts, and heavy metals, also some drugs. Biologically, there are cells in the epidermis that protect against disease-causing microbes, aka pathogens. You have immune system cells like your dendritic cells and macrophages that provide protection. They patrol the layers of the epidermis and engulf invading microorganisms. You also have melanin, a special molecule that protects the DNA of your keratinocytes from UV damage from the sun. As you may remember from Chapter 1, negative feedback loops maintain human body temperature at a warm 37 degrees Celsius. When internal body temperature rises above 37 degrees Celsius, receptors in the skin and in the hypothalamus of the brain send electrical impulses to the thermoregulatory center in the hypothalamus. This red dot here is the hypothalamus. The result is the sending of electrical impulses to sweat glands, causing them to release sweat. The accumulation of this liquid on the surface of the skin reduces body temperature through evaporative cooling. In addition to this, the thermoregulatory center reduces electrical impulses to the blood vessels near the surface of the skin. This allows them to dilate or widen, increasing blood flow to the skin and increasing the loss of heat through radiation. When your body temperature decreases, thermoreceptors in the skin and hypothalamus send electrical impulses through the thermoregulatory center in the hypothalamus. This center increases electrical impulses to the blood vessels near the surface of the skin, causing them to constrict or tighten. This forces blood towards the core of the body and has a warming effect. In addition, a reduction in impulses to the sweat glands reduces the release of sweat. The skin also detects changes in the environment. We call this cutaneous, which refers to the skin, and sensation, which refers to sensing. Cutaneous sensation enables the nervous system to perceive changes in the body's internal or external environment. Numerous sensory receptors are located in the skin, and these receptors detect potentially harmful stimuli like excessive heat, cold, pressure, pain, and touch, which could lead to tissue damage. Excretion is the process of removing waste and excess water from the body. It is an essential process that helps prevent damage to your tissues. Wastes include byproducts of metabolism, importantly ammonia and uric acid. Ammonia and urea are produced when the body breaks down protein, and uric acid is a waste from nucleic acid breakdown. Now the liver, the lungs, and the kidneys eliminate about 99% of these wastes, but the skin eliminates the rest through sweating. The skin has some metabolic functions as well. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin that is naturally present in very few foods. It's added to some others like milk and cereals, and it's available as a dietary supplement. Vitamin D is produced by the skin when the skin is exposed to UV light from the sun. UV light converts a molecule in the skin called 7-dehydrocholesterol into a new molecule called cholecalciferol or vitamin D3. This cholecalciferol is absorbed by the liver and then converted into another molecule called 25-hydroxy vitamin D3. 25-hydroxy vitamin D3 is then absorbed by the kidneys and converted into the active form of vitamin D, which is 1,25-dihydroxy vitamin D3. Research suggests that exposure of the skin to UV light for about 15 to 30 minutes a day, around noontime when the sun is at its highest, is enough to maintain healthy levels of vitamin D in most bodies. You might be wondering what vitamin D actually does, however. Vitamin D helps the intestines to absorb calcium and phosphorus, and it helps maintain our calcium-phosphorus balance. This vitamin is essential for the development, the restructuring, and the maintenance of bone. Without enough vitamin D, bones can become thin, brittle, or misshapen. Rickets, shown in the photo here, is a condition that causes children to have soft, weak bones. It usually occurs when children don't get enough vitamin D and is rare in the United States because in the 1930s, a milk fortification program was started to combat the disease. Now, vitamin D is added to all sorts of foods, such as cheeses, orange juice, oatmeal, and some yogurts. In adults, vitamin D deficiencies are associated with osteomalacia, that is, bone softening, bone pain, and osteoporosis. The final function of the skin is that it serves as a blood reservoir. The human body can contain up to 60,000 miles of blood vessels. This is for an average child, and about 100,000 miles of blood vessels for an adult. Approximately 5% of the body's blood volume is stored in blood vessels in the skin. In instances of significant blood loss, this blood may be transferred from the skin to internal organs to preserve life. So here's that cheat sheet again. There are 6 functions to the skin. At the bottom of the page, I've included a mnemonic device that may help you remember these functions. The mnemonic device is metal thermoses produce bloody and excruciating cuts. Metal refers to metabolism, the ability of the skin to produce vitamin D and to metabolize carcinogens, those are cancer-causing agents, and hormones. Thermoses refers to thermal regulation, the ability of the skin to help maintain body temperature. The pro in produce is for protection. The skin provides a barrier that separates the internal environment of the body from the external environment. Blood in bloody refers to the fact that the skin is a blood reservoir housing about 5% of the body's blood. The excra in excruciating is for excretion, ridding the body of excess water, salts, and waste. And then the cut in cuts is for cutaneous sensation. I hope this helps you remember the functions on your next exam. That was a lot of information. Let's see what you remember. As always, I'll read the question, then you should press pause on your computer. Think about what your answer is, and then press play when you're ready to see if you are correct. Here's the first one. Which of the following is not part of the skin? Is that the dermis, the hypodermis, the epidermis, or the reticular layer? Did you say hypodermis? I hope you did. If you did, you're correct. Remember the only function of the hypodermis is to connect the skin to underlying structures like bone or muscle. How does the skin function in thermal regulation? Is it dilation of blood vessels and increased sweating raises temperature? Or it causes muscles to shiver, raising body temperature? Or constricting of blood vessels and decreased sweating conserves temperature? Or it causes muscles to relax, lowering body temperature? Constriction of blood vessels and decreases in sweating conserves temperature. That's the right answer here. Which layer of the skin is composed of areolar tissue? Is that the epidermis, the reticular layer, the hypodermis, or the papillary layer? Papillary layer. That's right. Which of the following is not a function of vitamin D? Is it development and maintenance of bone, absorption of calcium, calcium phosphorus homeostasis, or thermoregulation? I know, that was an easy one. Thermoregulation is the correct answer here. This last one is another easy one. The skin plays a role in the manufacture of vitamin, is it A, B, C, or D? Of course, vitamin D. Great job. In this video, I described the layers of the skin. Remember we said superficially you have a keratinized, stratified, squamous epithelium. We talked a little bit about the keratinocytes and the characteristics of this layer. Deep to that, you had the dermis, which is composed of the papillary layer and the reticular layer. Remember we said the papillary layer is composed of areolar tissue, and the dermis that sits under it, the reticular layer, is composed of the dense irregular connective tissue, and I talked about why those things are important. We also talked about the hypodermis, which is not part of the skin, but it serves as a layer that connects the skin to underlying tissues like muscle and bone. I also went into 6 major functions of the skin. Do you remember what they were? Protection, excretion, cutaneous sensation, thermoregulation, metabolism, and what was the last one? Blood reservoir. That's correct. So remember, this will be on your exam most likely, and you'll need to recall those functions as well as what they mean from your memory for the exam. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the layers of the epidermis and what's important about them, along with a few other things. I hope to see you there.